The Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills have their first practice today as they're in full steam ahead preparation mode for the Sunday Night Football showdown, Ravens versus Bills. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are 2-2 head-to-head against each other, so who's going to take the lead in this matchup? Baltimore's coming off a win against the Dallas Cowboys. The Buffalo Bills, the hottest team in the National Football League right now, 3-0 after absolutely stomping on the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're coming into Baltimore for Sunday Night Football. The Ravens have a blackout game going. The energy is going to be electric. Speaking of that electric energy in the home stadium, the Ravens are 20-3 in primetime games at M&T Bank Stadium during the John Harbaugh era since 2008. Baltimore's .870 win percentage in such games is the best in the league by far, followed by Seattle at .774. The Ravens are the best team in primetime games at home in the National Football League, and they got their hands full against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. So we got everything you need to know in this matchup. We already got injury updates. So we have player stat comparisons, team stat comparisons, injuries, matchups, everything you need to know. Let's dive in to the content. First of all, the big-time markets actually have the Ravens favored in this game. Actually, 2.5-point favorites. Despite the Baltimore Ravens 1-2 record, the market actually has the Ravens favored by 2.5 points in this matchup. Let's take a look at some of the best performers on these two teams so far. Josh Allen has been electric, man. He's been making such good decisions. 7 touchdowns to 0 interceptions, 634 passing yards while also getting it done on the ground. Lamar Jackson has a slight edge in passing yards, but has been playing from behind more often than the Buffalo Bills. 702 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. When it comes to rushing, Derrick Henry has James Cook beat quite well, but James Cook is also that dual threat receiving back as well. So James Cook, a big-time player in this matchup, the Ravens are going to have to limit in order to win this game. He's averaging 4.6 a pop. He's got 3 touchdowns, 188 yards. Derrick Henry, he's got 5 yards a pop, 281 yards after running rampant on the Dallas Cowboys, over 170 total yards and 2 touchdowns, and that puts Derrick Henry at 4 touchdowns on the season. When it comes to receiving, you know, none of these teams have these number 1 crazy elite top 5, top 10 type of receivers, but they do have some weapons to contend with. The leading receiver right now for the Bills is Khalil Shakir. He has 168 yards, slight edge over Zay Flowers, 2 touchdowns, averaging 12 yards a pop. Zay Flowers is the number 1 receiver for the Ravens. 148 yards, a touchdown, 9.3 per reception. He was held in check versus the Dallas Cowboys last week. However, he wasn't a big part of the game plan because the Ravens were holding a 28-6 lead in the fourth quarter before the Ravens ended up missing a field goal. The Cowboys got an onside kick and the floodgates opened. Ravens, for the majority of that game, were trying to run out the clock. When it comes to sack leaders, it's interesting because Von Miller for the Buffalo Bills, we know he's a future Hall of Fame type of pass rusher, but hasn't been quite as effective the last season or two. However, this year he does have 3 sacks, and it's interesting because he's actually not listed as a starter for the Buffalo Bills on their depth chart. He has 5 total tackles, and he's being outpaced by Kyle Van Noy, who's about the same age as him, but has found the fountain of youth here with 4 sacks, 6 total tackles. Kyle Van Noy has 13 sacks in his last 17 games with the Baltimore Ravens. Really impressive stuff, despite dealing with a orbital bone fracture that he suffered in Week 1 versus the Kansas City Chiefs. When it comes to interceptions, the Buffalo Bills, they have 2 from Jamarcus Ingram, 4 pass deflections. Marlon Humphrey has 1 interception and 3 pass deflections. Marlon Humphrey currently ranked as the 20th overall corner in the National Football League when it comes to PFF grade, having himself a really nice year after he lost about 10 pounds in the offseason. Before we get into some team comparisons and some key matchups, let's talk about a few injuries that will play a role in this game. Sean McDermott said today that nickel corner Taron Johnson with a forearm injury is ruled out, as well as starting linebacker Terrell Bernard. So 2 of their starters on their defense with the nickel defender and the linebacker there are going to be out versus the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. Bills backup offensive lineman Tylen Grable will also be out a few weeks. Kiara Elam is also dealing with a neck injury and was limited today in practice. The Ravens have a few injuries of their own right now. While there didn't seem to be anything urgent or alarming happen as far as injuries against the Cowboys on Sunday, they do have a couple of guys missing practice. Maybe it's rest, maybe they're a little nicked up, but Tyler Linderbaum right tackle Patrick McCarry, and left guard Andrew Voorhees. So 3 of the offensive line starters are not practicing right now. Now, I'm not like hitting the panic button on that so far because it's the first day of practice. If we get to Thursday and Friday, those guys still aren't practicing, we'll talk about it then. But I think these guys are going to be fine and aren't dealing with anything major. They also have backup cornerback Jalen Davis with the hamstring, and nose tackle Michael Pierce. He was flexing his arm/shoulder on Sunday. That's one injury to watch out for. That could be a big difference in the game because the Buffalo Bills, with a pretty potent rushing attack, like we talked about with Josh Allen and the quarterback design stuff, as well as James Cook as a rusher between the tackles, definitely an injury to keep your eye on. If Tyler Linderbaum, for whatever reason, can't go, that would be a huge blow. He was the highest graded center, according to PFF, with a 91.4 PFF grade last week versus the Cowboys, and a 91.5 run blocking grade as well. All right, let's talk some team comparisons here. Baltimore Ravens offense is both top 10 in passing yards per game and rushing yards per game. And overall, they have the number 1 offense in football when it comes to yards per game. They are moving the ball at will against their opponents, but that hasn't always translated into points. Whenever you dig into why, you'll see that the Baltimore Ravens lead the NFL with their 32nd in penalty yards against them that have stalled out drives and put them in disadvantaged situations. You also will see that they've missed 3 field goals in their last 3 games, and that's 9 points that they've surrendered so far on points they should have had. The Ravens had the number 2 rushing offense in football, averaging 203.3 yards per game. That'll be a huge factor in this game because it's kind of strength on strength there. The Buffalo Bills' run defense has been pretty good, has a very strong defensive line, but like we said, one of their starting linebackers in Terrell Bernard will be out in this game. We can compare that to the Buffalo Bills run offense that's 14th in the National Football League, averaging 120 per game. They've been very balanced so far. When it comes to passing offense, Baltimore has the 10th overall passing offense, averaging 227 yards per game. Buffalo at 14th, just a few spots behind the Ravens at 209 yards per game. But here's where the Bills are elite. They're number 1 in scoring right now with 37.3 points per game. Baltimore's 11th at 23.7. So the Buffalo Bills are averaging about 14 more points per game than the Baltimore Ravens, despite the Ravens outgaining them in passing yards and rushing yards so far. Josh Allen has been so efficient through his first 3 weeks, and he's by far the MVP frontrunner right now with 7 touchdowns to 0 interceptions, over 130 passer rating, as well as getting it down on the ground as well. The Ravens have had success against Josh Allen in the past, but this is a different defense, different defensive coordinator, and I can't wait to see how this looks. One of the first matchups I want to look at is the Baltimore Ravens defensive line versus the Buffalo Bills offensive line and trying to force Josh Allen into some rush decisions. So far, the Bills are a perfect example of how if you have an elite offensive line, an elite quarterback, you can still dominate without elite wide receivers. We saw this in 2019 when Lamar Jackson won the MVP with his best weapon being the rookie wide receiver Marquise Brown. So the Bills are getting good offensive line play to give Josh Allen time. Josh Allen's making good decisions. The offense is in sync. The offensive line's playing well, and the run game's going. James Cook as a receiver and a rusher. The Bills looking very harmonious on offense right now. Everything's clicking. Can the Ravens defensive line, kind of push that harmony out of the way? Can they knock the Bills back a little bit, per se? Can they clog some of the running lanes for James Cook? Can they get Josh Allen a little bit uncomfortable? That's gonna determine whether or not the Baltimore Ravens win this game. However, I do think that the Ravens do match up well with the Buffalo Bills. They're a good rushing football team, and the Ravens have the best run defense in the National Football League right now. They're number 1 in run defense. And, when it comes to elite pass catchers, the Bills don't have a lot of guys. They have a great tight end in Kincaid, Khalil Shakir has been a solid receiver. They have the rookie in Keon Coleman. They have Mac Hollins. They have some guys. But as far as how we match up, I think we can stop the run And I think we can match up with some of these pass catchers from the Buffalo Bills. I think that, Kyle Hamilton, I trust him to go one-on-one with Dalton Kincaid. I trust Marlon Humphrey on Shakir. And Nate Wiggins, we saw what he could do last week, with a forced fumble on CeeDee Lamb in a big-time moment. I think our secondary is up for the challenge. Can they close down some of these open pass windows over the middle of the field? Can they, cut down on some of these penalties? They played really dominant football in the first half. The second half, some communication started to break down. We let some big pass plays happen. Right now, we are worst in the National Football League in allowing plays of over 20-plus yards. So we're allowing a lot of explosive plays. And right now, that's not really the Buffalo Bills game. They haven't been an explosive football team as far as pushing the ball downfield. They've been a very efficient offense. I think the Ravens match up well with the Bills, and I do think they can get the job done. Derrick Henry is also a big factor here. That's going to open up play action. The Buffalo Bills have not been great against tight ends. Okay, they're about middle of the pack, a little bit behind middle of the pack in the league as far as defending tight ends. They've allowed so far 124 receiving yards to the tight end, 18 receptions, and a touchdown. They did pretty well against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but their top tight end for the Jaguars was out. They did give up 61 yards to the Dolphins tight ends and 42 to the Cardinals tight ends. We'll see. I think we can find some favorable matchups with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely on some of their linebackers and safeties. I like those matchups, and I like the Ravens' ability to win there. Can we hold up in pass pro? That's a big question because the Bills have a great pass rush with Von Miller, Gregory Rousseau, Ed Oliver, and other guys. The Bills are very sound defensively. They don't make a lot of stupid mistakes where they shoot themselves in the foot. They play good, sound football. So can the Ravens, play good, sound football, cut down some of the penalties? If they can, I think they walk away from Sunday Night Football 2-2 and are walking away with the dub. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm getting a little bold here. I know the Bills have played Lamar Jackson pretty well. Like we said, Josh Allen and Lamar both have 2 wins against each other. So it's an even score right now. Who walks away with the advantage here? But I do think that the floodgates are going to open sooner or later for this offense that's number 1 in yards per game. They need to convert some points. I think this is where the floodgates open and the Baltimore Ravens go over 30 points. I'm going Baltimore Ravens 31, Buffalo Bills 25, and the Ravens fans leave Sunday Night Football at M&T Bank Stadium very happy. If you guys enjoyed today's preview, make sure to smash the like button. It does really help out the channel. Make sure you got your subscribe and notification bell on so you're up to date on all of your Ravens news and content. I love you guys. I appreciate y'all, and we'll see you in the next video.
When he wasn't looking, he ran me over.